Hi, I'm Lily, and I just turned 17. This is the story of how my dad, Mark, and my stepmom, Sarah, nearly ruined my life. But my grandpa, Richard, was there for me and helped me find happiness again. This all happened over a few years, but things got really bad recently. I'm still healing from the mistreatment I faced from Sarah, but I'm doing a lot better now, and I want to share my story. When my mom was alive, life was pretty normal. She was kind, loving, and always there for me. She and my dad were high school sweethearts and married when they were young. I was born when they were in their 20s, and we were a happy family until she passed away from cancer when I was 12. Watching her die was one of the hardest things I've ever been through, and for a long time, I blamed myself because I couldn't save her. My dad didn't seem to grieve, and I later found out he had been cheating on my mom with Sarah even before she passed. Just 6 months after my mom died, my dad married Sarah. Sarah didn't like me at all. She was cruel to me and said mean things all the time. One day, she told me, "You should have died with your mom. I don't know why I'm stuck with you. You're just a spoiled brat." I would always argue back, saying, "This is my dad's house, and I'm not going anywhere." But Sarah would threaten, "Don't be stupid, Lily. I can control your dad. If I say so, you'll be out of here in no time." I thought my dad would never listen to her, but I was wrong. One day, I came home from school to find my bags packed. "Why are my bags packed, Dad? Are we going somewhere?" I asked. "I'm taking you to Grandpa Richard's house. You can't live here anymore," he said. "Why, Dad? What did I do wrong?" I asked. "Sarah doesn't want you here. She doesn't like kids, and I need to keep her happy," he said coldly. I begged and cried, but he wouldn't listen. Sarah smirked while I pleaded. My dad took me to Grandpa Richard's house, and even though I loved Grandpa, I wanted to be with my dad. I couldn't lose both of my parents in 1 year. Grandpa let me stay with him, and he was furious with my dad. He fought with him for a long time, but my dad eventually stopped visiting. I went to my dad's house one day to beg him to let me come back. "Please, Dad, I need you. Don't leave me," I begged. But he just said, "Sarah needs me more than you do. We're happy without you. I want to forget my life before her." Sarah added, "You shouldn't pressure your dad, Lily. He has a new family now. You need to let go." I cried and cried, but my dad wouldn't change his mind. This went on for years. Grandpa even took my dad to court for child support, but my dad still wouldn't help. A few years later, my dad decided to terminate his parental rights. One day, he came to Grandpa's house and said, "Lily, I'm going to give up my rights to you. Grandpa Richard is your legal guardian now. I hope you'll stop bothering us." I was heartbroken. "How can you do this, Dad? Please don't leave me," I pleaded. He responded coldly, "Sarah needs me more. She's the one I care about now. It's final." Grandpa was furious. "You're a terrible father, Mark. How could you do this to your own daughter?" When I realized my dad didn't want me, I gave up. It hurt, but I started to be happier with Grandpa. I knew my dad didn't love me, so I stopped trying to get his attention. I couldn't forgive him and Sarah for what they did. After my dad gave up his rights, I stopped contacting them. Grandpa put me in therapy to help me heal, and slowly, I started to feel better. But I still held on to a lot of anger and resentment. I wanted revenge. The chance came when Sarah showed up at Grandpa's house one day while he wasn't home. She walked straight to my room and said, "Hey, Lily, I brought some of your stuff from the attic. Now that you're not Mark's daughter anymore, I don't want any reminders of you. Thanks for bringing them to me, Sarah. I hope you and Dad have a good life now. You finally got what you wanted." "I won't bother you again," I said, keeping my composure. "Oh, I'm pretty happy already, Lily. And I hope you forget about your inheritance. Don't expect anything from your grandpa. Mark won't give you anything, and I won't let him either," Sarah sneered. "What inheritance are you talking about, Sarah? I'm really confused." "Dad doesn't have anything of value," I said. "Well, your dad doesn't have anything, but your grandpa does. He'll leave all his assets to Mark when he dies. It won't be long now. You know your grandpa, Richard, is getting old. Once he's gone, you'll be kicked out of this house too," Sarah said smugly. "And who told you that, Sarah?" I asked. "Your dad, of course. He's the only heir to Richard's assets. You're just a kid, so you won't get anything. Besides, you'll probably be too young when Richard dies. We might let you stay until you're 18, but after that, you'll be out," she spat. I heard her words and simply laughed. Her expectations about Grandpa were ridiculous. She had no idea that Grandpa Richard couldn't stand her. Just because he was polite to her didn't mean he approved of her plans. I knew that if Grandpa heard Sarah's words, he would be furious. So, I decided it was time to get my revenge on both Sarah and Dad. Grandpa had been nearby and had overheard our conversation. When Sarah finally stopped talking about her fantasy inheritance, Grandpa walked into the room. What's going on here, Sarah? Didn't I tell you not to bother my granddaughter in my house? Grandpa said sternly. She was saying I'm a spoiled child who deserves to be punished. She also told me not to expect any inheritance and that she'd kick me out once everything is hers, I explained. Grandpa gave Sarah a fierce look. I also warned you not to talk down to Lily. And why do you think you're going to get my house? Who gave you the idea that I'll leave you anything? Grandpa asked. Maybe you won't give me anything, but you'll leave your assets to Mark, right? He's your only son, Sarah said, looking confused. Grandpa laughed loudly at that. He could tell how clueless Sarah was. He and I both burst out laughing. Sarah looked annoyed and confused. Why are you two laughing at me? I didn't say anything wrong. Of course, Richard's son should get everything, including the house, she sighed. You have some wild expectations, Sarah. I know you married my son for his money. And I know Mark tricked you into thinking he'd get all of my assets. He was right then, but he isn't now, Grandpa said. What do you mean? Sarah asked, confused. Nothing has changed. He'll still get all your assets when I'm gone, Sarah insisted. Here's some news for you, Sarah, Mark won't get any of my assets. He's shown what a worthless idiot he is. I won't leave him anything of value. I have someone else in mind, Grandpa said. No, that can't be true. You're bluffing. There's no way you'll leave your inheritance to someone else. You'll give your assets to your own son. Sarah said, getting more frustrated. I have several options, Sarah, and I've already made my decision. So stop dreaming and start preparing, because when I'm gone, you'll be the one out on the street, Grandpa replied. You can't do this to us. Sarah fumed. This isn't the end. Wait until Mark hears about this. We'll talk again. Sarah stormed out of Grandpa's house. Grandpa sighed and looked at me. We both knew this wouldn't be the last confrontation. Sarah would tell Dad about our conversation, and they'd both come back demanding their share of the inheritance. But Grandpa wasn't worried. He was prepared for what was coming. As for me, I was just waiting for the perfect moment to get my revenge. As we predicted, Sarah and Dad arrived at Grandpa's house in the evening. Dad had to leave work early and drive all the way here, clearly showing just how important the inheritance was to them. Sarah smirked at me and patted Dad on the back. Grandpa Richard just quietly waited for them to speak. Dad, looking furious, started, What the hell am I hearing, Dad? You told Sarah that you won't leave me anything? That's right. You won't be getting anything of value. In fact, I doubt it'll even qualify as an inheritance, Grandpa said calmly. You can't do this to me. I'm your son, your only heir. I deserve all your assets. How can you say you won't leave me anything? Dad protested angrily. I won't leave you anything because you've turned out to be vile and selfish. My only solace is that I got to see your true nature before planning my will, Grandpa replied coldly. How can you talk to your son like that, Richard? You're a father. Have you ever thought about your son's feelings? Sarah interjected. Has Mark ever thought about Lily's feelings? Why should I show fatherly love to someone who doesn't even look after his own daughter? That's a separate issue, Dad. It has nothing to do with my inheritance. I don't even understand why Lily is here in this discussion, Dad argued. Grandpa asked me to be here, Dad. I don't care about inheritance. I don't expect anything from anyone, I said. Lily has every reason to be here, Mark. She might not be your daughter anymore, but she's still my granddaughter. Lily is here because she is the one who will inherit all my assets, Grandpa explained, his voice firm. Everyone was stunned. I was shocked but stayed silent. However, Dad and Sarah erupted with anger. You can't be serious, Richard. Lily's just a child, and a girl. She has no right to inherit everything. Your son should get it all, Sarah insisted. Dad, how can you do this to me? What has Lily done that I haven't? You're choosing Lily over your son? Dad shouted, his face red. Yes, Mark, I'm choosing Lily over my son, just like you chose Sarah over your daughter. Look at the way you've spoken about Lily. Have you forgotten that she's your blood? I chose Sarah because I love her. Lily is part of my past. I don't even want to think of her as my daughter, Grandpa said coldly. You have no right to choose her over me. I don't even consider her my daughter anymore, Dad retorted, his voice cold. That's exactly why you won't get anything, Mark. It shames me to think that I raised such an entitled and selfish man. I'm not even dead, and your wife's already talking about kicking your daughter out of the house. You should be ashamed of yourself. You have some nerve coming here and demanding any inheritance. You can give everything to Sarah, but I won't let it happen. I'll get a lawyer, Dad threatened. Grandpa Richard remained resolute. He immediately pulled out some documents and showed them to Dad and Sarah. I've already made my will, Mark. All my assets will go to Lily. You'll get a small amount of money, so you can't contest it. Don't even bother trying. What is this, Dad? You already made a will? Are you kidding me? You can't do this. What about our house? Will you give that to Lily too? Dad asked desperately. Yes, I will. It's my property, and I'll decide who gets it. But since I'm feeling generous today, I'll give you a condition. There's one way you'll get the house you're living in now. What do I have to do? Tell me, I'll do anything, Dad pleaded. If Lily forgives you for your actions, I might leave you something, but first, you and Sarah have to apologize to her and beg for her forgiveness, Grandpa stated firmly. You can't be serious, we're not doing that, Mark protested. I'm not apologizing or begging, Sarah chimed in. Lily, do something. Sarah panicked while Dad remained silent. It was clear they were struggling to apologize. I had enough. I never expected or needed their apology. For a long time, I knew my relationship with them was over. I had no interest in rekindling anything or forgiving anyone. Finally, I spoke. Grandpa, there's no need to ask them to apologize. I know they're having trouble doing it. Frankly, I don't want their apology. I'll never forgive them, so there's no use. Okay then, if Lily doesn't want to forgive you, there's no other way. Looks like things won't be changing after all, Grandpa said firmly. No, wait, we want to apologize to Lily. Lily, please forgive us. We shouldn't have treated you like that. I just wanted to leave my past behind, so I didn't want to take care of you, Dad pleaded. Don't even try, Dad. I know Sarah made you leave me. I did nothing to deserve this treatment. You were supposed to be my parents. I was supposed to feel loved by you. You're a poor excuse for a father, I said, my voice steady but filled with hurt. Don't say that, Lily. Look, I'm trying to be better. You're being unreasonable. Even Sarah would apologize to you, right? Dad looked desperately at Sarah. Yes, sorry, Lily. Let's try again. Who knows, we can even be best friends, Sarah said, trying to sound sincere. Don't make me laugh, Sarah. You hated me and wanted me gone all these years. You and Dad treated me like trash. You abandoned me here, I replied, the years of pain and frustration pouring out of me. I'm alive because of Grandpa. You're apologizing because you want Grandpa's assets. I'll never forget your abuse, and I will never forgive you. After saying my piece, I burst into tears and went to my room. I couldn't take it anymore. I felt sorry for myself because of everything I had been through. I had no feelings left for Dad and Sarah. As far as I was concerned, they were dead to me. From my room, I could hear Grandpa Richard berating Dad and Sarah. He was so agitated that his shouting could be heard throughout the house. Dad and Sarah fell silent when Grandpa kicked them out, and the house became peaceful again. Grandpa came to my room to comfort me, staying with me until I stopped crying. He even ordered my favorite food and made sure I had dinner. Meanwhile, Dad and Sarah kept blowing up my phone, calling me names for influencing Grandpa and berating me for not forgiving them. Grandpa saw all of this and became even more furious. As the days passed, Grandpa took drastic steps. He transferred all his property into my name and appointed my favorite aunt as my legal guardian in case he passed before I turned 18. Grandpa also served Dad and Sarah eviction notices. Since they were living in a house that Grandpa owned, he had every right to evict them. After receiving their eviction notice, Dad and Sarah continued bombarding both Grandpa's and my phones. They even showed up at the house, begging for us to talk. Please don't kick us out, Dad. Where will we go? You know I don't have a very good job, and Sarah doesn't work either. We'll become homeless, Dad pleaded. You should have thought about that before neglecting your daughter. We take care of our family, Mark, and those who don't belong in my house can leave. Besides, I've decided to transfer the house to Lily, so it's up to her now, Grandpa responded firmly. Lily, please don't do this. Talk to your grandpa and tell him to reconsider. You don't want to see your father homeless, do you? Dad begged. You can't just kick out your father, Lily. How can you be so cruel? You're depriving him of your love and support, Sarah added. Yes, I am, just like Dad. You kicked me out of your home. I'm going to be just as cruel to you as you were to me, I replied coldly. Look, we know we messed up, but this can be solved. I didn't even want to kick you out. It's just that Sarah didn't want a teenager in the house. Why don't you come live with us? That way, we can be a family again, and families don't kick each other out, Dad suggested desperately. I don't consider either of you to be my family. You already terminated your rights as my parents, Dad. You left me to Grandpa because you wanted to focus on your new family. Sarah became your priority, not me. You did everything Sarah wanted. This is on you and Sarah for being so toxic. Don't ever contact me again. Only Grandpa is my family, I stated firmly. Grandpa promptly kicked them out again. Since Dad had already terminated his rights to me, he had no legal right to take me home. I knew what Dad and Sarah were like, so I had no delusions about their fake love and care for me. I asked them to never contact me again. Grandpa supported my decision and encouraged me to stay away from them. Months passed, and Grandpa told me that Dad and Sarah had been kicked out as usual. I recently turned 17 and celebrated the milestone with Grandpa. We also threw a grand party for his 70th birthday, with no invitation for Dad or Sarah. Dad still reaches out from time to time, while Sarah has been blocked by me. Dad tells me that his marriage is falling apart because he and Sarah constantly fight. He keeps apologizing to me and asking for a second chance. Apparently, he's financially struggling, and Sarah's tantrums are taking a toll on him mentally. I simply told him to get therapy. A few days ago, Dad mentioned that he's divorcing Sarah. Since he owns nothing and has little income, Sarah won't get much from him. They're in the process of separating, and Sarah is throwing tantrums about having to get a job. Dad will be paying alimony, but Sarah will need to work to live on her own. As for me, I'm doing great and looking forward to graduating and embracing adulthood next year.